Obstructive pavement parking is a real nightmare. A nightmare for not just myself as a blind person, but also able-bodied people. Any pedestrian that wants to walk on the path, it causes a constant problem. For me, it takes away a lot of the independence and freedoms that my amazing guide dog Spencer has given me. We recently did a Look North interview and are working with the local police to try and put an end to this problem. I'll be showing you the interview in a couple of moments, but I'd just like to take a moment to explain things a little bit further to you. Working with the local police, they've been absolutely awesome. They've even arranged to put extra patrols onto the routes that I regularly walk around my area. Better than this, they've actually agreed that any cars found parking on the pavement causing the offence of obstructive parking, they'll be issued immediately with tickets. They're taking a zero tolerance approach, which is absolutely brilliant news. In the busy areas, this will happen on a daily basis. In the residential quiet areas, then the approach will be, first of all, to pop letters through the post boxes of the houses to advise them that not to park on the pavements, and that should they continue to do so, then they'll receive tickets. Even more inspiring, they've agreed to try another system whereby the likes of you or I can send in a photograph, date and time stamped, clearly showing the registration, the whole vehicle, and the whether it's obstructing the pavement. They're going to trial sending tickets to these people to see what effect that has. It's worked in the West Midlands under a programme called Operation Park Safe, and it's almost eliminated obstructive parking. So I really hope that this works and goes ahead. The interview is coming up now with Look North, and it'd be lovely to get your views and comments. Thanks for taking the time to watch and the time to listen. Bye.
As you can see, it's really busy, and it's quite a narrow lane as well, so straight on space. I don't like this, it's all scares me to death.
I trust Spencer with my life, and he's my eyes really, and he's the reason why I can get out. But there are things that really do affect us, and the biggest thing is the pavement parking. It's terrifying. I'm petrified. It makes me nervous. It makes me anxious. It makes me wonder whether I should actually carry on that walk or just turn around and go back. But then I think I need to get to where I'm going, and I should be able to. There's hardly a day goes by where I can go out and not come across something that's not just parked two wheels on a path, but actually blocking it totally so that you just can't get out. So please just don't park on the pavement. There's usually somewhere else to park. Even if it's a couple of minutes away, walking distance, you can normally find somewhere to park. So just please have a thought for others and don't do it. People's lives are being put at risk just going for a walk, just going on their daily business. And one day, there's going to be a bad accident. I worry each time I go out. I'm scared that either Spencer or myself are going to get hurt.
Morning, and if you're out and about today, take a look at how many cars are parked on the pavement, because the chances are there will be loads of them.
That's unless you live in London, where a blanket ban on pavement parking has been in place and enforced since 1974.
The charity Guide Dogs says it's causing huge problems for blind and partially sighted people, and they want the rest of the UK brought into line with London. Heidi Tomlinson has been finding out more.
Meet Terry Quinn and guide dog Spencer.
I trust Spencer with my life, and he's my eyes really. Straight to the curb.
They both enjoy a daily walk between Baildon and Shipley, except that is when the footpath's blocked, which is what happened a few days ago.
Forward. It's a really, really busy road. It's horrendously busy. The paths are very narrow. We couldn't get past, so at that point, you have to sort of put your trust in Spencer, but it terrifies you because...
Back, back, Spence. Back, back.
You can hear all this traffic whizzing by. You're not quite sure how far into the road this vehicle is. My heart is beating out of my skin. Spencer is trying to keep quite close to whatever the obstacle is, and then he'll find his way back onto the pavement.
In.
Guide dogs are trained to deal with these situations, but it's still risky.
Good boy, thank you.
The police have been in contact with some of the drivers of the cars that were blocking the path. They say that they just weren't aware they were causing such a problem, and there will now be more patrols in this area as a result of Terry's experience. Now the Guide Dogs charity is calling for parking on pavements to be banned, like it is in London. The government held a consultation on the policy in 2020 and is considering further restrictions.
I worry each time I go out. I'm scared that either Spencer or myself are going to get hurt.
On the day Terry was filming, his path was blocked twice. Once again, Spencer calmly guided him around. How many more times before there's an accident?
That was Heidi Tomlinson reporting, and some of those images were quite shocking. It's not just cars slightly on the curb, but completely blocking the pavement completely.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the impacts and what that means for people who use guide dogs. Joining us is Clive Wood from the charity Guide Dogs, and he's brought Winnie with him. Clive, nice to see you.
Good morning,
Welcome to
Clive.
breakfast.
Good morning.
We saw some of the images there, and we saw some of the problems that causes. But just give us a sense of, if you're out walking and you come across a car on a pavement, what does it mean for you?
It's a real challenge, and I think what Terry's experienced in that clip was something that a lot of blind and partially sighted people experience on a daily basis. And it is really challenging, even if you're a guide dog owner like myself, or you use a white cane. Mm-hmm. The problem is still the same, and you get to a point where Winnie will stop. I would check with her what the problem is, and Winnie's been trained to look after me and make sure I'm safe.
Yeah.
So she will try. She doesn't really want to take me into the road. It's against her nature. So then I have to try and get around that obstacle, that vehicle, and it is really, really. Your heart is in your mouth.
Of course. Because
a vehicle you don't know what's coming towards you. Vehicle could be coming. There's a lot more quieter vehicles now, electric vehicles. And you are taking your life in your hands, literally.
And so talk to us about that scenario. What will Winnie then guide you to do? As you said, stepping out into the road, but how do you manage to navigate that?
She will take me as close as she can to the curb.
Right.
So she'll take me and get me back onto the curb on the other side. And, and all that time she's doing it, I'm trying to concentrate on making sure she's doing her job. Mm-hmm. But also, I'm really quite anxious and concerned because I don't know what's coming.
Mm. Yeah, and how often have you experienced this, Clive? Is this something you come across on a fairly day-to-day basis whenever you go out?
Absolutely, and this is where what we're hearing from many blind and partially sighted people. This is happening all the time. Over 85% of the people with sight loss that we've questioned, and it has been happening over and over again for many years. I had hair when we started campaigning on this issue, and it has been there for a long, long time. It's working in London. They've got regulation in London, and that's what we want to see for the rest of the country, so that parking is prohibited. And we don't want to ban it. We're saying we don't want it banned. We're saying that local authorities need the power to allow pavement parking on certain streets. So basically turning round what is in place at the moment. At the moment, local authorities have the power to stop pavement parking street by street, but it's very expensive, very time consuming for the local authority and very bureaucratic. Local authorities are in favour, the same as us, that it should be the other way round, that you can actually ban parking or restrict parking on pavements, but also you have the opportunity to introduce pavement parking on narrow streets where we need to make emergency vehicles to go through exactly, for example. So that's where we want it to be. And we just need the government to try and get this done as soon as possible.
Do you think drivers have any awareness of how difficult it makes it for people who use a guide dog, particularly, to get around? But also this applies to other people who may use things like mobility vehicles as well, I assume.
I don't think the drivers do. I think that in terms of, it's convenient for someone to park, and they'll find somewhere that's convenient for them to park, and if that means parking on a pavement. I've been in situations where, I've come across someone who's parked on a pavement, and there's two things. Either someone will be very apologetic and they'll help me round. Actually, I don't want them to help me round. I don't want them to park on the pavement. Or I get people who are quite aggressive. And so it's not my problem. I'm allowed to park here. And I don't want to have an argument with someone about it. I just want to get from A to B.
That's really shocking. People actually react aggressively towards you. That's unbelievable.
Absolutely. And because people feel that they can park there. And this is the thing, it's about education. This is why we need to raise awareness, allowing local authorities to make it safer for people to go from A to B on a footpath. That's all we want to do. We're not asking for the world. It's something as simple as being safe and not putting our lives in at risk. And I don't want to put Winnie's life at risk either. Of course.
Well, on that note, Clive, Department for Transport spokesperson said that they've had a consultation on it, and in light of those findings, they are actively considering options for addressing pavement parking. So is that what you would want them to do, to sort of roll out what's happening in London elsewhere? Or do you think there's more that could be done, touching on the point you made about education?
I think there's two elements. Absolutely, education is really important for drivers, but also I think the wheels within government, as we know, go very slowly. The consultation was back in 2020, and every day there's more consideration about this. It puts people's lives at risk, so we need this to be done as soon as possible, and we need it to be mirrored to what's in London.
Well, Clive, thank you. You've articulated really clearly the importance of this. And I have to say, Winnie has been perfectly behaved. Best behaved member of the studio, I think. Better than us in the morning.
About being on the telly this morning. Thanks so much, Clive. Really nice to see you. And thanks to Winnie as well.
Thanks for coming in.